Hello and welcome to a very special swamp edition of Late Night BJ. You are here with me, Buko Juice, your thirst quencher, and tonight we are joined by my swamp bro from the other side of the pond, of the Southeast Asian pond, so to speak, Shao Han. Hello, Shao Han.
Hi, hello.
Wait,
Hello,
wait,
hi
I
everyone.
have an applause thing. Hi.
Hi.
For anyone who doesn't know Shao Han, let us give him the opportunity to talk about himself a little bit. Let the audience know anything you'd like to say.
Yeah, it's like, hi everyone. Glad to meet everyone. I'm Shao Han, and I am very happy to be here. I've always been tuning into the late night VJs, and I'm glad to be able to join the show myself. Oh, hi. A couple of swaggy Southeast Asian bros. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm very prepared for tonight. I actually decided to bring some coconut juice, some boko juice, to be on brand for the stream. As you can see, I'm very silly and I'm very enthusiastic about things like that. And I am a RPG writer, designer, and as well as a researcher. Hi, Sweden. Hello. Sweden is one of our followers from a D&D stream that I just finished about maybe half an hour ago or an hour. And
awesome.
awesome.
Hi, sweetie.
And and yeah, so in addition to doing academic work in my day job, I do RPG work also as my day job. So today, that's actually the topic that we're going to talk about. These two things put together.
Awesome. Can I just say that Shao has basically outbranded me by having Buka juice. I can't do that right now because I have the misfortune of deciding to get into intermittent fasting recently. So
Oh yes, yes,
I'm not sure if you've
yeah,
heard
and,
about
and
that.
that sugar in it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't consume anything other than water and coffee, black coffee, or tea sometimes after a certain time.
Mhm.
So right now I have decaf coffee because it's very late night. So it's a little soul draining, but it works, right?
We do
Ah,
what we have to.
let us know in the comments what you're currently drinking because you can't have a late night BJ without a drink. You'll you'll get thirsty. It's thirsty work, late night BJs. So, Shao,
Yeah.
um, let's see. You work in the academe, right? I don't, but I do like to research a bit as a part of tabletop RPGs, I suppose. And I guess I am also a bit of a math nerd, and I do write some stuff about math, but that's for
Mm.
my alter ego identity. I don't really talk about that so much here in this channel. So, for you, tell us something about that part of your life.
Okay, so I guess like I've always been, I guess like a rather growing up in the 80s, I guess, has been very. I was always kind of like the kid in class who was like not really listening to the class, or rather, I'm listening to whatever the teacher said, and something seemed interesting to me, and that just spiraled off into a totally different direction from what the takeaway was supposed to be. Like, for example, when I was like basically like, oh, that sounds really cool, let's do some world building. And that's even before I played any RPGs. Like, my first exposure to RPGs was actually the game manuals for the SSI old TSR games. I had the manuals, but I had the computer games, but I didn't have a computer to play them in. I somehow had them, found them, and so I was looking at all the. I was playing D&D derived off the manuals of the old SSI books, right? Because they had like all the stats there, right? That was like, oh, all right. Then going around trying to get the much vaunted strength 1800, and not understanding what I did, because it's kind of like I had the formula, but I didn't really have everything inside there. So I was like, what's going on?
You have to reverse
And
engineer. You have to reverse engineer AD&D first edition,
D and
basically.
D, yeah. It was like, and it was like, that was pretty much like, it was a very kind of scrappy, very zany kind of vibe. But as I went on into school further and further, I found that actually, as you got more and more advanced in class, I also didn't expect to get there because I was always failing my examinations when I was a kid. So in Singapore, we're very examination. We're very intense examination cultures, and so I didn't really make it through school for until I dropped out multiple times, got kicked out of schools, and was considered a bit of a dud. So I never really considered myself particularly studious until I somehow managed to find myself in college where. Uh, so I was signed up for this course, and then this gentleman, this like a rather stately gentleman with a beard and like a batik shirt, was talking something about the importance of looking at
Oh, I think Shao
art
froze.
in science. So that was my in my first year. Then that's when I met John. That was John Mixick lah. So I met Mixick then, and then like who's like the one of the premier archaeologists of Southeast Asia. And then I just attended his classes, and when he was talking about temples and things, I was just drawing diagrams and drawing dungeons in class. So that's pretty much like
Oh,
I
oh,
don't
I
really have
think I
an
have a
inspiring
Mixic
story of how
book somewhere.
academe and RPGs work for me. It's more like I was hanging out.
I think I
Yeah,
have a
it's the
mix.
book that I think I passed over to you, right? The one
Yeah,
was Silk Road to the Sea.
this one, this one.
Yeah, Southeast Asia and the Silk Road to the Sea. Yeah, this one.
It's a pretty
Yeah, this
good
one, this
book.
one.
I
Yeah,
learned a lot here.
yeah. So that was that was in my final year when I was teaching in NUS with the University of Singapore. That was the course book for me and Mick were working together because I was his teaching assistant for that class. So and academe turned out to be a good place where I could think about my own stuff instead of working according to some preset uh, exam metric of success, right? And independent research as a game designer as well as a researcher was something that jive more with me than my previous life thing. So that's two parts of my academic life: being a not very good student in Singapore, and being a more meandery researcher who decided to go into RPG work using the skills I picked up in the academy.
There are several things in your story that I would like to pick up on. The first is that I kind of I wonder if the word is empathize. No, I connect with the idea of finding random D&D books in random bins that are for sale for cheap. I think I remember having something like that here in the Philippines. Like I think it was a Nova Fontana store. It was like just a bunch of AD&D books. You had no idea what it was, but there were monsters in it, and it's like, oh, all these numbers. Is this for programming? Is this for a game? I never quite understood
Yeah.
that. I also empathize with no, not empathize is the wrong word. I keep thinking of the word, but I also remember not being very good at especially sociology classes or civics classes, history stuff like that. It was always like my worst class. It was the class that kept me out of honor roll. It was
Hmm.
only after RPGs that I really got into those things. I've always been more of a math guy. I don't know why, but
Hmm.
that's just that's just how I was wired, I guess. So,
Hmm.
given that, um, let's talk a little bit about how you joined together. No, how your RPGs bled into your academic life, or vice versa.
Okay, so I think like one of the big things that I notice in my own work is I guess a lot of it is for. It's funny that you mentioned. It's interesting you mentioned that because I was on the opposite scenario as you. It was like over here in Singapore, it's kind of like people take their math very seriously because I mean, like our prime minister is a mathematician from Trinity, who got his degree in Trinity College. So it's very big on math. The country is very we're a technocratic state, so we're very big on math, mathematic precision and simulation, right? So for me, I was actually poor at math because I was like not very good at doing my drills, but I also did very poorly in civics and history because I was always kind of like I don't want to memorize the stories, and I
Yeah,
kind of
exactly,
thought I
right?
would have nothing going for me, right? Especially if it's some really nationalistic kind of like curriculum that's going on, and as a kid you just rebel from, I guess, one-dimensional stories. If you are of a RPG playing bent, I guess that's a little bit more of a connection there as well. So, but I found out that I was really fond of history only after I went into university, where there's this big thing on, I guess, again, archaeology and anthropology classes. It's like, all right, so this castle looks like this. Why? Like, like what is this live function to people? How do people experience this place? And that's a little bit of like, to that whole same mental time travel vibe I get when I'm reading a good book or I am playing a game and I kind of like explore another universe, right? So there's a little overlap for me where I can retreat from whatever reality is around me into another mental experience, right? That is far away from whatever's around me, lah. And both academic work kind of like help my games, and games help my academic work, because like I do remember a lot of my colleagues and my students saying that I was very playful in my academic research, and very irreverent, which worked to my advantage and to my disadvantage, because I also don't actually have a disciplinary focus, because I'm actually come from a Asian studies background. So if it's just the nature of academia as well. If you are focused and disciplined, not in the I am disciplined, I have good work ethic, but if you have a hierarchical focus, guild of sorts, it's easier for you to rise within that recognized discipline. So I kind of took the skills, but not really the social opportunities it provided, and I just kind of like move around. And then in my RPG work, it's the same thing, right? Like, both of us bonded over and a love for OSR and new SR, like, retro SR games, like retro clone games. But then we actually ended up working a lot more on story game adjacent stuff together. And then right now we are in the big RPGC Dream Seas world, where these things don't actually make that much a distinction there. That's a very, I guess, a disciplinary distinction that doesn't really apply to us here in the RPGC as much as it does over in other parts of the RPG spheres.
Whoa,
Yeah,
the comment is a little large. Sorry
yeah,
about that. I'm a professional,
yeah. So
guys.
yeah, you're a professional. Sweden very excited. Sweden is, what time is it in Australia right now? Is it 3:30 or 4?
Oh, Sweden from Australia. Oh, hello.
Yeah,
Okay, I guess I can address this question first. Do you have a Discord channel? We do, especially for Southeast Asians. We have an across RPG SEA Discord channel that I can send an invite to that. I'll course it to Shao, especially since you know each other. I think Shao, you're familiar with that one, right? We
yes,
currently
I am. It's the one that I was invited to a while ago as well. Yeah.
one of the things that we do right now there is that we have weekly random tables of just random prompts. Right now it's we're trying to fill out a random table of as many new flavors of noodles as possible.
Noodles. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, it's Meshavel now says that I mentioned Nova Fontana. Now that's a deep cut. Yes, because Nova Fontana is no longer around, unfortunately. It's one of those things that was in old
Yeah.
Green Hills. Hey, someone got a badge. Hello, we have a lot of comments today. I'll get to you eventually, but for now, where were we? We were talking about Shao and I,
Yeah.
myself's shared passion for OSR games. We do like OSR, but a thing that I've noticed, because there's kind of like a divide of OSR story game, whatever you have in the West. Here in Southeast Asia, I've generally, because I guess we're far enough from the scene in the West, we're like, well, we'll play OSR one day and we'll play a story game on the other day, right? Or at least that's how I feel like things are. What do
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
think about that,
Yeah.
Shao? Okay.
I feel so. It's kind of like the, yeah. I mean, like from my experiences, like from the freelancer experiences, like we do the work that whatever work there is, we just kind of like thank you very much. We're so far from the fringes, and I guess we're getting closer to some kind of like industrial recognition. But it really comes down to, hey, whatever there is, if we're lucky enough to focus on something that is within a certain disciplinary boundary, sure. But then, how do I say this? It's like, I guess, to use the art scene analogy, if you don't have a gallerist or curator that's interested in pushing a certain kind of thing, and you happen to be the RPG C art style, then I think the rest of the time you end up like you just do a more diverse set of things. You play a more diverse set of things, and then you find out your own style, and then you find out a market that likes the style, and then maybe you can make it into, hey, this is who you are. But along the way, I guess I still identify very much as a workhorse. It's like it's I see an open call. I'm like, hi, I have the ability to learn your rule set very quickly because I do nothing but read for a living. Can I work for you, please? I'm running over to that particular company, and then I get turned down, but it's fun to try. And I think like that same energy is when I notice how my friends in, I guess, other RPG spheres work. Is like, oh no, I would never try that system. That system is not something that I'm interested in. So it does feel a bit like music scenes as well. It's like genre is very important, I think. It's like some kind of like things like oh no, man, uh I don't do post punk. I only do, like industrial acid wave jazz. And it's like I guess like if you are living in a place full of cities, that makes a lot of sense because the genre gives you identity across multiple countrysides and cities. But for us here in Southeast Asia, it seems as though like whatever resources we can get is pretty eclectic. So we just pick whatever we can, and we found ourselves from there.
I actually resonate with that a little bit. My current problem. Well, I am not as active as you are on the RPG design side of things. I think it's because I don't know. I guess my office work is a little bit draining sometimes, and when I get home, I'm like, I just want to sleep. But I do my part when I can.
Yeah.
Currently, most of the gigs that I do get on the RPG side are generally related to me talking about something related to the Southeast Asian culture. So I kind of want to expand as well. I enjoy like a transhumanist cyberpunk
Mm.
kind of future. Oh, actually, those are two different things. Transhumanist future, a cyberpunk future. Give me all the futures. I'll work on them. Give me all the fantasy settings. I'll learn your system. As I
Yeah.
said, I'm a
It's like, please,
mathematician,
please,
so
I
at
will learn
least
the math.
I will learn the math at the very
Yeah.
least.
Yes.
So I guess
Yeah.
let's cycle back to OSR games. Also because I've noticed that Davidson has mentioned that he also sorry
Mm.
that they have
You also
also
track rations, right?
yeah they like to track rations. I too like to track rations. How about you, Shahan? Do you like to track rations?
Uh, I it's a bit like I like to track rations, but I rarely find games that where I can play in which people like to track rations. So my tracking of rations has become somewhat less enjoyable, uh, because it's like I can't find a group to vibe with to enjoy tracking rations together. Like even in games which are story games which have some degree of ration tracking, like for example,
The
Band
moves
of
have like
Blades, I really like its project management aspect, and I play with people and people hate it, man. They're like, "Oh my god, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to track the clocks, the progress meters, and everything?" Yeah, and yeah, I love the Excel spreadsheet. It's I have this Google Sheets that I basically just stole from Rames. Okay, but I basically have Google Sheets I stole from Rachel and Rames that. And people are like, "Oh my god, Shao is taking out his Google Sheets again, taking out spreadsheets. Stop him! We just want to play simple games and stuff." So I do like games that has that little bit of granularity, a bit more bite to it, as well as I don't know, like some kind of emergent play can come out from tracking rations, right? It's like, hey, I don't have rations, so I'm going to run around and I don't know, go to this village and see whether I can bag some food from there. I do like that bit of uncertainty that the both story games and OSR scenes are famous for. Yeah,
You know,
so I do really enjoy that part of OSR.
even the act of just rolling for hunting when you're out of rations, I feel like it's there's already like an emergent storyline that comes out of that. Like, what kind of animal can you hunt that will provide the type of meat that can sustain your entire party? Or is it just berries? Are you stuck with berries for today? Or do you even get berries? Is it a desert setting and are you like trying to find what lives under the sand and stuff like that? I really enjoy that aspect of it.
Yeah,
Although I also like usage
yeah,
dice. So it's easier to track. You take usage dice, and then if you roll a low enough number, the usage dice goes down. So
yeah,
there's still the element of something is running out, but it's a bit more
yeah.
abstracted.
Like the one in the black hack we use, right? Like
Yeah,
the ones
Black
in
Hack
the black
and
hack and the white
Macchiato
hack, right? Yeah,
Monsters, I think, use that. Chaotic Neural says it reminds me of a
yeah.
Dune.
Oh,
Ooh, I haven't read Dune yet. Dune
oh
RPG
yeah.
mechanic. I'd like to have tracking water
Uh,
rations. Bad
yeah,
water discipline.
this person wastes waters. Yeah, they don't drink their own recycled sweat, man. It's like they want to drink fresh water all the time. Naughty kids. Yeah.
So, what is your what other than tracking rations? Is there anything about OSR that really speaks to you?
Yeah, so I think linking back over to like the study aspect, right? It's like I find, for example, like I guess like for a long time, the game that I really liked was the game that actually you introduced to me of like Johnstone Metzger's The
Oh,
Nightmares
Metzgers.
Underneath, which is like kind of like OSR slash OSR adjacent kind of game, and like
Okay.
firstly, there's a lot about the OSR, which this OSR scene, which is deeply problematic. But that's a conversation for another time. But
Yes.
like like, you see the Dodge. Hi, I'm jumping on the expressway now. I'm going through the filter lane. But it's like I mean, like just very briefly, there's a lot of issues about. I mean, the whole genre of going out to the wilderness, finding yourself, and becoming rich, and or maybe finding your success. It's the whole you get a bit of the whole Bildungsroman kind of vibe. Or like, all right, I find myself in the wilderness. I'm a young man who becomes something. So it's unfortunately gendered and ethnically coded sometimes in some of the OSR works I see, but in other OSR works, it's like, hey, no, there isn't that. There's instead less of a go to a place, colonize a place, or kill things and become significant. In Nightmares Underneath, I find it really fun for
Let's zoom it a little bit.
yeah, like narratively explaining why dungeons are messed up places and why only people who really don't have anything else better to do with their lives, like thrill seekers or condemned criminals or age lords, aka player characters, decide to jump into a howling nightmare realm to go in to plunder for gold and wealth. That's not something that polite society does. So I do really like that, not just the deconstruction of the OSR vibe, but also imagining, hey, how do you use this playstyle, but maybe uncouple it, right? Decouple it from a lot of the whole more go out, explore, manifest destiny vibes of OSR. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a strong aspect there of like sometimes when I design for an OSR game, one of the things that kind of block me is that you're going through the dungeon and then you need to like loot from the god of the place, and you're like, but shouldn't you just pay respects to the god of the place first or something at least?
Yeah, yeah. And and it's like because I guess it's RPGs, right? The intuition is I'm here spending my time. The world is content, as in it's literally created content for me to enjoy. But that kind of exchange leads into a I guess a very the exploitation angle is there. It's like GM create a world. I want content. Fill up my very short attention span with more swords, more magic, more moral reasons for me to be the good guy, even though I'm doing terrible stuff, right? So you look at like that kind of design. Uh, it's not that aspect of OSR that I particularly enjoy, and OSR doesn't do that. Makes it easier for me as well because in OSR I think they do a lot of games which you are the asshole. You are like some grubby guy who steal people for the boots, and I guess it's a lot of that whole European memory of Hundred Years Wars, plagues, and medieval nastiness that goes on inside there, inside for people. But it's like the weird thing for me is when I play with people who are like, I want to do terrible things, but I still want to be the good guy at the end of the day, and that's usually for me. That's when I look at the OSR games. I'm like, can I go back to just hanging out with actual sociopaths who stab people and don't pretend that they're stabbing people for the greater good? It's like they're just stabbing people because they want the guy's pair of boots. It's like, like suddenly that guy's moral honesty becomes refreshing in his clarity. And then you know what I mean, basically.
Yeah.
That's also one of the things with OSR.
I think what that reminds me of is that that Order of the Stick prequel comic where a bunch of paladins slaughtered a goblin village because goblins are evil.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Yeah.
but they were just living there.
That's the,
There was they've just been
yeah.
enjoying their short lives and multiplying, and you thought that was a problem. Was I
Yeah.
feel like OSR can be a tool to explore that, although it's not always used in that way. So I guess it depends.
Yeah.
What I do like is that more modern interpretations of OSR, or by modern I mean in the last 2 to 5 years, they've been interesting for me in that while the aspect of getting XP from looted gold is generally still there, they have been starting to explore like different ways of doing it. And I think that changes the narrative significantly. Because I feel like exploration
Yeah, like,
itself, which is like one of the big pillars of OSR, it's still, what's the word? It doesn't have to be colonialist. Like
yeah, it doesn't. Yeah.
people can travel and enjoy what they see and interact with the culture. The main thing that you avoid doing is that you just don't have to steal the culture for yourself or steal the land for yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, anyway,
Like so I think like the game they were playing a while ago, right? Like Lucas UVG, right? In which you had alternative XP advancement tracks for different things, and we decided that our group in your game would advance via finding stuff. Looking at new stuff and just wow, look at the world, and that led
look
to a
at
very
that
different play
rusted
style
bridge.
from like wow, what's that bridge? Wow, what's the? I remember when Zedek was going on with his monkey museum. It's like so it's like all these things were quite fun because it led to like the nature of the game. Yeah, there's UVG over there, being a lot more slow pace. And leisurely, which was very good because we were playing at like 8 a.m. in the morning. So yeah, so yeah, like and I find like there isn't this urge to save the world sometimes, uh, but there's this more urge to what is the world, like define the world. And I think like going back to the whole academic study things is like the GM have put in a lot of effort to like explain why, oh, look at this bas relief that I've made here. Oh, okay, these people have this particular aspect of like a material culture that I really want people to get engaged with. But if nobody gets engaged with it, the that kind of GM might end up just being happy that they created it anyway, because it's like the creation of it is as much a joy as the exploration and sharing of it. And I think that's where like OSR actually provides a bit of that outlet for me to create worlds in which the player characters might not actually make any context or sense whatsoever. It's a bit alien. It's a bit of the same feeling I get when I am a social scientist going into an area where I'm totally the alien, or like I don't belong there, and it is only by the privilege of so many people sharing things with me that I can make sense there, and I slowly have to kind of understand what is the society's rules, what is the culture, what is the history, what do the animals here do, rather than going there imposing my desires and values on the things. And I find that for me, OSR games allow this the most in both player and GM experience of the games I've tried. Yeah.
And you mentioned a little bit about creation. I'm curious about how your academic work inspires your creation, especially since um, your field of study is quite related to culture as well, right? So
Yeah.
how much of
So
that bleeds into it?
it's a bit of a two. It's a bit of like a feedback loop, because when you it kind of loops into itself. So my background is in culture, history, and politics of Asian societies, right? But I do very little of that in actual academic life these days, because um, firstly, the number of jobs that pay for those are very few, and they are held up by people who are higher CR than me, because they have this mystical status known as tenure. They have lair
Oh,
actions. They
I've
have
heard of
legend.
this legendary power
Yeah,
called tenure.
yeah, tenure. So like lair actions and legendary actions are really powerful. You get a thing called known as an office. Have you heard of it before? Yeah,
Ooh,
and you actually get this thing.
does it get
Yeah,
lair actions?
yeah, lair actions are really powerful. You can like get people to do your photocopying for you, and you can teach a class, and you can get some guy to do the grading for you while you go off on early vacations. So the thing about academic life is that the economy's changed, right? Like we are living in the world of, uh, I mean, like not to find a point on it. We are going through a major resource crash, and a lot of people who are brought up thinking that, all right, I'm going to just get a job and stay there, and if I work hard enough, I'm going to get promoted. That's not going to happen in for a lot of people in our age bracket. So for me, I don't actually teach a lot of Asian stuff. So I end up turning a lot of that stuff into game stuff. Like for example, someone like, hey, I would like to make a RPG about swords and dragons, and then like, oh, okay, maybe I can put in something about swords and dragons, but from a Southeast Asian slant inside there. Then I can kind of like put that in, and instead my a lot of my stuff that I really like to do inside my academic life, I kind of express it inside games lah. And also I kind of turn games into a bit of a teaching session, like not to be too directly pedagogic about it, but if for example I can put in a bit of a teachable moment in a game that, all right, the this castle is full of giants that live there, and they are very very quiet. They don't really want to do anything, and if people go inside there, they find out, hey, what's with the giant society, and they learn a little bit about how to deal with a non unfamiliar society. Then I guess I have taught them a little bit of anthropology. I've taught them a little bit of history without them realizing that they've gone for a college level undergrad class, and
You
then
fool!
it
I have
bleeds
just
back into
given
my
you
IRL.
education.
Yeah, yes, it's education disguised as XP. All right. This is the Pavlovian. Hi, XP, learn more shit. Okay. It's like, but it's like really like the ethos inside the academic world. It's like, what do we want to get from that? It's like we're living in a world where the big corporations and want us to kind of like do things in certain streamlined singularity based ways, right? And quoting broccoli chocolate. Yeah, it's like but if there's some things that there's no market to be taught in that, or worst of all, is in the history of the university from all the way back to the medieval ages of like the scholastics of like only wealthy people and their kids get to go to school, then you end up having a whole bunch of people learning things like the liberal arts, which is designed to help uphold empires and colonies. And they think that, all right, I'm going to learn all these things and I'm going to go out to change the world. But no, you actually go out and your skills make you perfect for upholding the systems. You learn languages, you learn society, you learn politics. So if I want to hack society a little bit, maybe it's still a bit of that cultural DNA and I infuse it into other cultural patterns, and then after I die, it would just be forgotten, just be a wave in the sand, right? But I think it is through people like us that I think there's this bits of small little exciting bits of chaotic cultural energy that may change what it means to be in school, what it means to have education, what it means to have knowledge. Lah. So for me, it's a bit ideological in a sense, yeah, basically.
What
So
you
I
said
can I
about
can see like I can yeah I can see everyone like sort of like, oh, okay, this sounds very serious. We didn't come in for this.
Uh, the way for those who are new, the way late night BJs are structured is more of less of an interview and more of just simulating how I talk with other people with a little bit of question so that to drive the conversation forward. So I think it works, especially since it's late at night and these are the kinds of conversations that I usually get at night. It's just that instead of
Yeah.
decaf coffee, I usually get beer. Except I can't right now
I'll be
because this intermittent fasting thing prevents me from doing that.
yeah, right. Remember to drink more water and don't take too much black coffee on an empty stomach, right?
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
will drink water after this. Sweden asks, "Do you ever get students to world build?" I'm wondering if that could be a way to show how
Yeah.
one understands historical, social systems and how they relate to each other.
So, in a way, yes, because over to cyberpunk conversation. So, for my day job, I teach. So, I teach in very kind of like again back to that whole workhorse identity, right? It's like sometimes you go and do whatever the jobs are available to you, especially if you aren't in a position where you can pick your job. So, I work in a lot of places where like I teach applied ethics, or I teach corporate communication, or I teach kind of like introduction to research design and writing for students who have no interest in these things whatsoever. Like I remember teaching a bunch of students who specialize in building air conditioning, how to use JSTOR and how to use Factiva. And the guy looked at me and it's like, "You mean all this was available? I could have just gone into the internet and I could have done this?" And I said, "Yeah. And you're paying the school fees, so you already get access to databases, and there is nothing that is stopping you from knowing this world you cannot see until, well, you find it for yourself." And so, uh, world building in a sense of, to answer for Sweden, is that sometimes I have to teach people to write emails to people who are not very happy with them. For example, you're writing to a colleague, the simulation is you're writing to a colleague who is having a bit of a emotional problems in life at work, but you need to get their end of the work out, but you need to do it sensitively. So a lot of my students run in, jumping in with like, I will impose my value solution. And a lot of times the world building that comes out is like empathy. Put yourself in this person's position. What would you like to do? What would you like to hear if you were that person? And sometimes not even a macro world that I ask you to build. A micro world is hard enough for them to build, but I think it's a good step forward. And another kind of world building that I see is I teach people how to go for interviews. And part of my whole cyberpunk life in the real world is I tell my students, hey, would you be interested in learning how to get the AI to accept your interview in the first place? Then they, what do you mean AI? Then they're like, nobody's going to read your letter. There's actually a natural language processing unit that's going through your words, and if your words don't align with what their words are looking for, you don't even get to the human. And that world building of like, oh, you mean we live in a terrible cyberpunk world where a bunch of algorithms can decide us based on some guy's program biases? I said, that's life. And then that kind of stuff is pretty fun. Yeah. Oh yeah. Chocolate broccoli. I see tabletop cinema is talking about chocolate broccoli as well.
I learned a lot from Space DOJ Shao.
Yeah.
Working on a frontier colony,
Yeah.
mired in a
We play
complicated
in a
history of
few
war and megacorp politics. What are you
yeah,
playing
we
with?
play in fields. Lancer, that's Phil's Lancer game. Yeah, that's the
Oh,
sci-fi
that's
space
Phil's
robots
Lancer
game.
game. Okay.
Yeah,
Shout out to Phil.
yeah. So
He's my first GM.
yeah,
So I guess
yeah,
there's. I really want to applaud I want to applaud the idea of always approach by trying to understand first where that person is coming from before, or maybe not even attempting to impose your own value system, because people have different value systems. Well, that's one thing that I've learned from interacting with people across the seas, so to speak. That they will
Yeah.
think about things differently from you, and you can't expect them to work with your expectations. You have to understand what they expect, and vice versa. It's kind of a give or take in that regard sometimes. When I so here's a little secret. Shao Han is actually one of the main reasons why I ended up with a Buko Juice name. Of course, my real name's initials are BJ, but when
Yeah.
I visited Singapore and as part of that whole RPGC trying to get to know each other outreach that we were doing back in the before times,
The
um,
before times, yes.
um, Shao Han took me to a temple. Um, I'm trying to recount this story, but feel free to correct me, Shao, if I get
Okay,
details
okay.
wrong.
I want to hear your version. Yeah.
Okay, so basically there is a god there. I think it is the supreme god. Um, and he has four aspects, right? And
Yeah.
it's a I found that very intriguing because it the statue of the god is like in every cardinal direction there's a different god, there's a different face, there's a different position, and it was a very solemn moment for me because in a sense I identify with a supreme god being raised Catholic. I identify with a supreme god that is above the other divinities, but also kind of like not within the structure of that, or not within the everyday of that religion, so to speak. So I could be really butchering this, so forgive me. But basically,
No.
I noticed that there was a bunch of coconut juice offerings on the altar of the god. So it's really like a bunch of buko juice in different states. Some of them are in like cartons. Some of them were in open containers. And I was like, so I asked Shao, why is this god taking buko juice as offering specifically? Is it because um, the coconut is both very all encompassing in the sense that a coconut in Southeast Asian culture does a lot of things because you use it to clean the floor, you use it to for nourishment, you use it to make your houses with their logs and stuff like that. But it is also nothing because when you open a coconut, there's nothing inside but juice. And Shahan was like, I don't think so. But that's a very good interpretation. I was like,
Yeah. That was my reaction. Yeah. We were walking down the hill. Yeah. And it's like this was yeah, to answer Swedin's question, this actually uh, was this the Chinese folk religion temple? It's Southeast Asia. If you poke hard enough, there's a Chinese folk religion aspect to things, right? So this was actually in this place in Singapore called Simpang Bedok. So do you remember in the morning we went there? We had noodles. There was a ancient tree shrine next to this noodle store, and then we said, "Hey, look, there's a tree shrine there where there's this like it's a huge. It's one of those creeper, the strangler creeper figs, right? Which is the big banyan tree with all the figs around.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then like after that, I said, hey, let's go to the last shrine. And we walked up a hill. So there was actually a Thai temple. That's a Theravada Buddhist temple. But because it's a Thai temple, there aren't a lot of the Thai community in Singapore goes to the temple quite a bit, but that area we live in that has a lot of Chinese people, wealthier Chinese folk, because there's a lot of private housing around, and so it's actually quite popular with Chinese people as well as Thai people. And the deity that we're referring to is actually from not from the Buddhist pantheons or from the Thai pantheon, but actually from the Hindu Indian pantheon. That's actually Brahma, the one of the Trimuti, one of the three gods of creation. Right, we have Shiva, Lord of Destruction, and also Lord of Creation, creating things. Then we have Vishnu who preserves, and then we have Brahma who is basically God of immanent reality, existence as it is, kind of thing. So four faces because creation is all encompassing, has all different kinds of faces, right? And I'm pretty sure that there's coconut juice there because the devotees are Chinese and they're like, this god came to us in a Thai temple. We must bring things that they like from Thailand. And the coconuts are all Thai coconuts. We must make sure that the god feels at home, all right? They get a bit confused if they don't we don't want the deity to be homesick. So let's bring some Thai coconuts for them. And then it's like different devotees will come down and bring things there. But I think inherently your story is a good one as well, because this is a Buddhist temple. Being void and empty in things is also the nature of all phenomena from a Buddhist perspective. So whatever I just told you is inherently meaningless as well. Okay, so I think your story is better.
But yeah,
So yeah, that I remember that very very well. And then Bim was like taking photos. Yeah.
so I enjoyed traveling to my friends elsewhere in RPGs SEA because we were able to share those little moments, but also because I got to eat a lot of food. So,
uh,
if I remember things correctly, one of the first to travel was actually Shao. So Shao went here to the Philippines.
yeah, I went there for a PvP arena. I think I see Hyron in the chat just now. I think one of my first people I fought against in the arena was Hyron. Hi, Hyron.
So, that was the
Yeah.
first thing that happened, and as one of the hosts, I really wanted to give Shao Han as good of an experience as I could give him, and I wanted to take him to Batangas so that he could experience the Batangas Bulalo and the Batangas coffee because that's
Mm,
what it's
yeah.
the southern Tagalog region. So we're the capital Tagalogs and the southern Tagalogs are the Batangas people. So, but it was quite a journey, and we all had work, and things were not working out. So eventually, I brought him instead to Bonnie Avenue, which is basically like a stone throw away from my house. But there's a bulalo joint there that was pretty good.
Mm.
So I showed him the bulalo lifestyle of sucking the meat out of the bone, sucking the
Yeah, yeah,
marrow
yeah,
out of the
yeah.
bone.
We just I remember the Bulalo. Yeah.
It was basically that.
I still follow them.
So, but then I think Shao took that as a challenge because when we went to Singapore, it was like I'm gonna feed BJ everything, and I mean everything. So, so
I have the yeah. I remember overfeeding you.
yeah, I think I remember being constipated by day three or something. It
Yeah,
was the fun type
that's
of
because you're
constipation.
living in my
Yeah, yeah.
yeah you were living in my place, right? And then I was like, it's all right, BJ. You can actually use the washroom. You look very relieved. Yeah.
But yeah, because we were talking about interacting with cultures without being very colonialist about it. Basically, that's one of the easiest things to do. Go to another place and eat their food.
Yeah. And I'm
And
supposed to have curry with all of you, right? That's the sweet peanut sauce thing, right?
yes, yes,
That's the yeah.
we should try that.
Yeah.
A lot of recipes call for peanut butter, but
Mm.
if I cook kare kare, I have a tendency to because I tend to old school everything, even when it's to my detriment. So if you ever eat my kare kare, you will see me roasting the peanuts and then like chomping it
Yeah.
down and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just the way that I cook, unfortunately.
Well, it's
So
like it's fun because that's also your live culture,
yeah,
right? That's your life in the market coming to you, right?
yeah, yeah. Actually, I haven't talked about that. One of the things that a lot of people may not know about me is that my grandmother and my grandmother's line. So basically, that part of the family is a palenque people. So they earn their living by stall manning the stalls in the markets and selling all kinds of wares. So that's why I've never really learned some of the finer arts like the art of haggling. That's something that my
Mm.
mother learned, but because the palenque culture ended with my grandmother, my mother learned it, the basics, but I never learned to haggle. So if you like, how much is this? I go to a place and says $100. I'm like, okay, here's $100. I'm like,
All right.
if my mother
All
saw
right.
me, I'm like, you fool, it should have been 50.
Yeah, Mel is looking disappointed at you.
I have no
Yeah,
haggling powers, unfortunately. I'm sorry, man.
yeah. You need to go back to your to your matriarch law and get it the deep BJ law.
I need
Yeah.
to I
And
need
I
to
actually
learn this
do.
skill. Have you tried batting your eyelashes to the
Uh,
vendors? You know, I tried that to. Okay, I tried that with admin in school back when I was a student, and it was surprisingly effective.
yeah, I think you should also go in front of the vendor, take your man bun off, and then do your full Sephiroth hair, and then that will probably get something. Pretend you're in a shampoo advertisement, like yeah,
That could work. I'll try that sometime. No, I
try that,
won't.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
it's
and
food.
actually, yeah,
Even when also when I went to Malaysia, the same thing happened. Although I think
mm,
I went to Malaysia before I went to Singapore because the
yeah.
Malaysia
I
one
think
was
that
a
was your
work trip.
first work assignment, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
that was
work
a work
assignment,
trip.
and
Yeah,
it's a 1 month trip. And I
yeah,
remember my Malaysian hosts gave me all the food from the mamaks and
yeah.
all the places that
All the
they
Saravans
brought
and
us through,
everything.
and they were like, so BJ, our food is good, right? Yeah, yeah. Your food is very good. Your KFC is good. Your mamaks are good. Everything's good. I like everything. And then they're like, when you go to Singapore, tell us if their food is better than ours. I'm like, what? I can't do that. I just like the
It's a
food.
it's one of those like long-standing middle class rivalries of these two places. Yeah, because we were once one, and then we basically got partitioned into two.
So
Right,
I've heard.
so the rivalry, the sibling rivalry, is real. Uh,
But yeah, I also joke a lot when we look at Southeast Asian created RPGs that one surefire way to tell is that they will talk about eating in the RPG at some point.
yes.
Like it's a given. Like when I wrote for Islands of Sinauna, our director was like, "We must put Filipino food in here," and I'm like, "Yes, I like what you're saying."
Yes.
And I feel like it comes up a lot. I'm not sure though if it's
Yeah,
universal,
I
but
think I do remember being very excited by the picture and description of kare kare inside the islands of Sinona. I think you should pitch that a bit, because I think Sweden for will be very excited by it. It's like why do you tell everyone a bit about Sinona?
an entire bit about
Like
Sinauna. All
and the
right.
food in there. Yeah.
Let's see. Let's go to hit point press. Wait, how do I do this? I'm a professional, guys. I will screen
Yeah.
share.
I'm going to like bet dollars to dimes that Sweden is excited. Yeah.
Wait, here's what we will do. We
This is
will
the
open.
monetization moment. Says screen share. Hi, have you tried Skillshare? If you use Skillshare, you can be a professional like BJ too. You can use this unique link.
Okay, I know I have
organic
Islands of
engagement.
Sinauna here somewhere. Well, let's
All right.
open it up. I guess we have the time for it before we wrap up. I believe I
Yeah.
put it in my Dungeons and Dragons folder because it is a D&D game. Fifth edition. So many D&D editions. And then
Yeah, yeah.
Islands of Sina Una. Oh no, I can't find it. Oh, there it is. Here we go. So the Islands of
Here
Sina
we
Una
go.
is
Yeah,
a
right.
fifth edition campaign setting that is actually inspired by Philippine mythology. And I did a lot of credit here. Let's change our view to two-page view here.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
as you can see, I'm credited as a researcher. Wait, do you even see it? Maybe not. I should have probably zoomed.
It's a bit smaller. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's zoom. Zoom. There you go.
Yeah. Enhance.
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 So I'm credited as a
Enhance.
researcher because I did a lot of cultural. I'm missing my term. Cultural
Yeah.
consultation.
Consultancy. Yeah,
Con-
consultancy.
I did consultancy work for
Yeah.
this because I did read a lot about Philippine history prior to the arrival of the Spaniards. And I also did game design because I like to do monsters. And I did writing for some of the world building. So I did a lot of things here. And let me just show you
Yeah,
a real quick view of the book.
show us the food.
It's in the first few pages, actually. Hey,
Yeah.
sorry, it's taking a while to load. My mistake. I should just put it on two-page view so that it's faster. And then get rid of this. Wait, let's see. Oh no! I am.
It's
No!
alright.
What's
It's alright.
happening?
Believe in yourself.
Hand tool. And then go to two-page view again. And then command 2. There you go. I know what I'm doing,
Yeah.
guys. So we'll go to page
Professional
12.
because you use Skillshare.
Here you go. As I mentioned,
Yeah.
it's in the first few
Yeah.
pages.
Food. Yeah.
So this is a Bicol
What
Express.
what what dish is that?
This is
Okay.
No,
Yeah,
sorry, no,
Bicol
it's a
Express.
kinilaw. It's a kinilaw.
Okay.
It's
All right.
tuna.
That's the ceviche, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah. It's
yeah.
tuna
I love it, man.
cooked in vinegar, basically. And there's a lot
Yeah.
of ginger. There's a lot of chilies in it. It's pretty good with beer. And then we have like a whole
Yes.
list of ingredients here and dishes. Then now we can zoom again.
You got the buku there as well. You got the coconut.
Huh. Incidentally, we don't, huh? I suppose because everyone knows about coconut already. But then there's rice, and everybody also knows about rice. There's mention about our ube, which is the purple yam. I think that's different from the
Yeah.
Singapore ubi. Right? So
Yeah.
anyway,
It's
the
a
thing.
matter of great confusion. Like my bawang and your bawang is different. My ubi and your ubi is different.
Oh my gosh, I just realized that like a few weeks ago. Apparently, bawang for us is garlic, but for every other Southeast Asian place, it's onion.
I'm not sure whether we can blame the Spaniards or the Portuguese for this. It's like, same thing. Yeah. And like for us, ubi in Malay is basically, I think more like a cassava and tapioca. Then like for you, ube is purple yam. But if we were to go to the United States and we say yam, we'll get something entirely different as well. Yeah, but if I say yam in Chinese, I'll get your ube. So it's like it's just like I don't know what's going on anymore.
So here's the
Uh,
thing. Onion in Tagalog, at least in Tagalog, I'm not sure because we have like several thousand languages, I think, or hundreds. In Tagalog, onion is sibuyas, which comes from the Spanish cebolla.
oh, okay. Oh, okay. That's also the Latin word for onion, right? Cibulia, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
basically, the Spaniards arrived here because I think there's bawang puti, which is the Malay word
White
for
garlic. White, yeah, for garlic, right? White onion is garlic, yeah.
so garlic is bawang puti, and then onion is just bawang,
Yeah. Which
right?
is why whenever I order the boy bawang snack from Singapore, I'm like, why does this taste like garlic and not onion? The mysteries have been revealed. I have been initiated. Yeah.
So yeah, that's really one of the fastest ways for us to learn about each other is through food. Of course, it's arguable that it's a shallow experience of each other's cultures, but deep dives have to start somewhere, and I think food is
And
as good as any.
and I do remember there was this there's this Southeast Asianist, this professor from Australia who was teaching about food as well as literature, and she was pointing out that what we eat and what we speak using the tongue, right, is actually some of the most visceral aspects of identity that we have, right? And it's like a lot of times, like I notice the a lack of interest in another cuisine usually doesn't bode well for, I guess, further interest in that connecting with their culture or understanding with people from that worldview as well. It's like oh, like in Singapore, one of the assignments that we actually send our students to do when I was still teaching anthropology is go to go to a place where you become the minority. So we have a lot of like little Yangon, little Bangkok, little Manilas in Singapore, where the many transient workers who come through to help build this nation live and work. And so we send students over to understand more about Southeast Asia from these enclaves. And some people come back and so do you eat anything there? And they gave me the look of this is essentially our version in Singapore of tighty whitey. Like I've never been to anywhere outside of my whatever my mom says is alright kind of place, right? And so they're very like uptight and they're like, no, the food there smelled very strange. I don't think it was edible. And then I'm just like,
It's food.
entire society, it's food, right? Then like they're like, the fish sauce is probably going to give me stomach ache because the fish sauce is spoiled. Then I'm like, there's a chemical process. It's called fermentation, young lady. And then it's so it does lead to a very kind of like a situation, right, where like people, the smell, the hearing, everything, and of course it can be overwhelming to people. But to share another story about cultural exchange here is that I used one of my deep Shao laws is that before all this I used to work in a migrant worker shelter, so I kind of used to do legal representation work to help migrant workers get insurance payouts, protect them from abusive employers, etc., etc. So there was this Chinese guy I met. He's a Chinese peasant somewhere from Shandong province in China, and he's been through a rough time. When he got to Singapore, his passport was impounded. He couldn't get his pay. He was injured, not allowed to heal up, and all kinds of nasty stuff. And when he finally ran away from the abusive employer, the other people in the shelter I was working in were mostly people from Bangladesh, and they looked at this guy. They saw how ragged he was, and they decided to cook some biryani for him. So they made a whole bunch of really spicy chicken and rice for him. And the guy was so starved for food because he's been eating leftovers and like from dumpster diving when he was in the streets. He just ate the whole damn thing. And afterwards, he said to me in a look of wonder, "Mr. Tan, I actually don't eat spicy food at all, but I think now I do. It's like my brothers from Bangladesh and India have taught me the world of spice. I will go back to China and tell them that spicy food is worth eating." Then he became a big, he became a big fan of basmati rice as opposed to the short grain rice. Then I'm like, wow, okay, like cultural exchange, food, and he will always talk about how food in the rest of Asia is really as beautiful as whatever you can find. So I was just like, okay, wow.
My
Just
my
food
random
cultures.
commentary about food and cultural exchange is that one of the reasons the Westerners went to us is because they were looking for something called the Spice Islands. So they spent all these hundreds of years colonizing us and grabbing our
Yeah,
spice, and they have the blandest. I'm sorry, I'll stop.
yeah. It's like you nearly went into the mayonnaise and salt and pepper are considered spices,
Yeah,
but you stop yourself. You have
I
amazing
almost went
restraints, I
there,
see.
but
Yeah,
we're supposed to be an upbeat stream tonight, so we're going to avoid that. But yeah, experience each other's
yeah,
foods. And on that note, actually,
yeah,
if you have questions for Xiao
yeah.
or for me, now's the time to ask. In the meantime, I'm going to share my screen because Xiao shared something to me, and with your permission, Xiao, I'd like to share with you also what Xiao did just before this stream. The,
Yes, I did. I did.
all right. Since we're talking about food anyway, so here is what it is, and can you tell us something about this, Xiao?
All right. So this was a mistake. It
This was
was
a mistake.
I yeah there's this like steakhouse near here where they had this spicy ribs challenge, and I decided that you know what, I finished a lot of paperwork today. I'm a grown up. I can do this. All right. So and then the guy said, the manager, he's from the Philippines. He looked at me and said, "Sir, it's like you need to sign up uh, with a indemnity form if you want to
I
take part
think
in
we have
challenge.
that.
You eat, you have to eat everything in 30 minutes." And
Wait, you might have
I
your
personally
information.
can't do it. Yeah, so I don't go ahead, go to the indemnity form, so I sign it, and only after I sign it would they prepare the meal for me. So if I finish it in 30 minutes, I will get free beer. I unfortunately was unable to finish because that pile of ribs there, that's like maybe 600 grams of meat, right? And alas, I was a fool. I ate my lunch before. I should have become like a coconut and aspired to become emptiness. But unfortunately, I was not empty when I ate this. Yeah, you get the and it was a lot. Yeah, so I could not win the beer, but it was I still have leftovers. They're in the fridge. It's a lot of meat. I think it was quite value for money.
Yeah, I think even if you
It
don't
is
end
a
up
lot.
getting the free
And that's why I
beer,
was a bit slow.
it's it still works out.
Yeah, like it still works out, and I think the restaurant staff looked very excited. There were the new waiter and waitress. They kept looking, and they kept looking at me. Do you need water? We like some ice. I'm like, I'm all right. Then I'm like, ice sounds good. Then I started deciding to drink water because that's actually the worst thing to do because that'll spread the spice everywhere. And I decided to do that anyway because I actually enjoy the pain of doping myself up on too much capacity. And I'm like, whoa, man, look, feel this serotonin. It's like then I'm just like, my face wasn't red, but I was sweating everywhere, and I was like, ah, this is this is this is really interesting a challenge. And the waiter was looking at me with a look of like morbid fascination. Is this the next level of humanity? This young guy was like,
Is this what we have evolved into?
yes, a weapon to surpass Metal Gear.
Nanomachines. Sorry. I just remember
Nano machine,
nanomachines
son.
from.
Yeah.
That was fun. So I think as we are wrapping up, if there are no more questions, we'll plug to some of the stuff that Shao has worked on and some of the stuff that Shao is working on. Oh wait, working on probably not because that's NDA.
Yeah, but has been announced, so I can talk about it, but not too much. Yeah,
Yeah. Where do you want to start?
I
I
think we
get.
can let's start with Beam stuff. I think because
All right, sure.
we work on it together of sorts.
So this one is an adventure for Arc, the Arc RPG. Can you tell me something about this one, or tell everyone
Oh,
about
all
this
right.
one?
Okay, so actually, this is for Bianca's game. So kind of like Bianca is this amazing RPG, Arc Doom RPG, which is well about averting the doomsday, pushing back impossible apocalypses, and trying to make the world a better place. So Bianca actually approached me to say, "Hey, would you like to do something for my stretch goal and make an adventure for me?" And I said, "Sure." And then I worked with an excellent artist from Baguio, Danielle Florendo. So I checked over for like and I think we vibed together quite well. So she did a lot of pretty artwork for me that kind of I think
Let's show
captured
one.
and the
This one.
essence of what I was trying to work for. Yeah, so like this adventure is pretty much a generational struggle between a sun god and a sea god. The sun god is a very popular deity in that story with forces of modernization and kind of fascist right-wing mass movements. The sea god is kind of like connected over to the traditional hierarchies of power, very much about following your place and keeping in balance with the universe and divine rights. And then, so these two people, they all think that they are right, and they're plunging into a civil war that will basically destroy this island home they live in. And the game is about basically trying to stop people who are neighbors from killing each other. So another thing about our Southeast Asia RPG games that me and BJ tend to do is the heroes tend to be people from the area trying to stop a calamity that is happening to people that you know. So instead of go somewhere, save the world, is go home, try to clean up your problems at home first. Change begins from, I guess, around you, within you. And I think Danielle did an excellent job. Danny did an excellent job at with this spread. And I think like BJ was like excited about this spread for a really long time.
Yeah, it was super good. Also, I would use the
Uh,
applause work again. Yay! Because that was such a very good explanation of how I feel like my our OSR. No, let's not talk about it that way. How our writing tends to vary from the writing of other, well, the West generally. The West likes to explore a place by going to that place from somewhere far away. I feel like we tend to be more of fixing internal struggles because just internally there are already different groups of people. I think my own Arc
Yeah.
adventure. Check out Arc, by the way. Arc RPG by Bianca Canosa.
Yeah.
Just look for it on the internet. Arc RPG, Arc Doom RPG even, and you'll find it for sure. It
Yeah,
was a very
it's
successful
sold by
Kickstarter.
Exalted Funeral.
So check that
Yeah.
out. This is one of the adventures for it that you would have gotten if you were a Kickstarter backer. I'm not sure if and when they will sell this to the general public, but I think it's gonna happen. That's
Yeah,
just.
it sounds that's gonna happen.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So before we go to the next
And
plug, D&D Digest asks, what do each of us value most about our friendship? Ooh, do you want to take this one, Shao?
oh, good vibes. I think for me, I think the role of an RPG designer is a lonely and often less misunderstood one. So for a while I was in Singapore, I was not just an RPG designer. I to kind of connect with anybody or anything that had RPG profession stuff. I was actually a professional GM for a while, but that burnt me out really quickly because I couldn't actually talk to people about things. Like I had to talk to people on a fan basis or maybe on a fellow consumer basis or as a service provider basis. But I think what I appreciate a lot about, and this is another question that I think someone asked about the origin of the term swamp bros, right? But is that we have this like this nomenclature that came out is like, hi, like we're living in the swamp, so to speak. Like no, not actually the swamp. I'm living in an air conditioned apartment right now. But this whole imagination of the swamp as being the jungle, the swamp, the forest as a place of danger, hazard, hell, and I think a lot of it comes from like the whole uh, Vietnam War experience that constructs the discourses of Southeast Asia. And for us, it's like, that happens to be home. And I think like that resonance between us of like wanting to create and live in other realities depicted from what people show of us, as well as being able to just talk shop, being able to talk about RPG design as well as enthuse about things without being bound by space in the form of like living down the street from each other and having different perspectives because of our cultural and political upbringings are different leads me to having a lot of I think that is a very healthy cross germination of ideas, values, and vibes, right? That I value a lot from our friendships.
Oh, thank you for that, Shao. I guess I'm gonna be a lot more simple. I like hanging out with Shao and friends because sometimes when we see each other after a long time, we just shout swamp at each other, swamp, and then we're like,
Swamp, yeah, yeah. So then we do the Fraggle Rock song,
yeah.
that swamp song, yeah.
And we actually have a shared love for the orc, for the orc
Yeah.
fantasy
Oh,
race,
yeah, for the orc. Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
also
yeah.
deconstructing the
Yeah.
orc because as it's a long discussion. We're not gonna go into it, but orc
Yeah.
has a lot of baggage in terms of how it is
Mm,
perceived and how a lot of writers have used orcs as their XP for culture. It's okay to kill, and
yeah, it's like with orcs, drow, and goblins, right? These three
yeah,
get the short end of the stick all the time.
yeah, and
Yeah.
to me, the orc specifically is something that I like to own because when I make a half orc in a campaign, I tend to show that okay, from an outsider's perspective, this looks like a savage person, but actually there's a very rich culture to what they're doing and stuff like that. It may not be a culture you're familiar with. It may
Yeah.
not be a culture that you have encountered, but they have their own lives and their own norms and their own cultures that need to be respected. And that's kind of how I like to deconstruct orc, and that's something that I vibe with Shao with on a meta
Yeah.
where both orcs level.
Yeah. It's like and I guess like coming in Asia, it's like especially in Singapore, which is well, we're in Southeast Asia, but the cultural values is a mixture of East Asian and Malay values that dominate here, and some Anglo culture as well because of the British heritage. But there's this very strong gentlemanly culture that comes here, which is so like you can insult people, but if you do it in a classy way, you can't get back. There's this very strong politeness, genteel, civil culture, and I do really like playing orcs. Yeah, I really like the Jagut as well. So it's like the Jagut. If there's a problem, ice is the solution, the Jagut solution. But it's like I really like orcs because they are big. And they are also kind of like everybody thinks of them as dumb as whatever. And being in Singapore, not doing very well in the exams, and I'm quite a bit bigger than a lot of my peers, so
Shao is very tall.
yeah, I did get actually the reverse bullied quite a bit when I was a kid. It's like, oh, you're the bad guy. It's like, all right, this guy stole our stuff. Who stole our stuff? It must be him because he's bigger than us. He's the bad guy. And a culture of anime and wuxia tells you that small pretty people are the good guys, big ugly guys are the bad guys. There's so much colonial baggage to unpack from that. But like, but for me, being a tall guy in Singapore when I was a kid meant that the orc for me felt to be the orc, the ogre, these creatures felt kind of like, all right, I was more at home inhabiting their skin than being some fake posh dude who was like, oh, I'm the good guy. So orc was pretty fun. Yeah.
All right, so let's get back to. Let's see. Let's get back to the plugs. Let's plug the next thing. Oh, look at that! It's a piezo
So,
thing. What's this
oh
one?
yeah. So all right. So yeah, like basically this one is something that's coming up at the end of the year. So and one of the things that I really appreciate about Paizo, so in this one is that they got my name order correct because a lot of times having a Chinese name means that my clan name is actually my first one Tan, and then my given name is Shao Han, right? So I've been Han Tan Shao, Shao Han Tan, whatever. I basically go by Shao Han Tan when I work in the West in order to make it easier for people to understand for naming structures. But Paizo went out of the way to like, hi, we make sure that we call you by the proper name for this. But this is one of the more exciting projects that I can't really say much about because it's not yet out. It's coming out at the end of the year, but it's a very high fantasy place where magic is and technology is cranked up to 11, and it's a place where I think, like, if I understand the fans in Pathfinder, a lot of them have been asking for this place to be out for a while, and it's a place which is maps a bit over to South Asia and North Africa. And so when I was asked to kind of like whether I'd like to work on it, I was very grateful because I'm more of a Southeast Asian person rather than a South Asian person. But I was asked to give my perspective and create some things, and I hope people will like it. But there's also a lot of fellow creators that I really enjoyed working with here, and people who did really creative things with magic fantasy tropes that I think are some of the more fresh and exciting takes I've seen in a long, long time. Yeah, and talking about magic, is that we can go to the next one, I guess, the Secrets of Magic one. Yeah, that
Hooray!
one
This
is.
one.
I can talk more
This
about
one's
this because
already
this was
out,
out
right?
already.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I can talk about this. Yeah, so this one you can see like there's so many authors inside here, and this was something which
Oh yeah.
one of the books that where I got a little bit more like they gave me a bit more trust to work on this, and I really enjoyed this one because what I got to do in it is I get to create a lot of magic items and weapons which were a lot more Asian fantasy flavored rather than European fantasy coded. So I made a bunch of weapons that were essentially wuxia anime style swords that did cool things if you did cool things with them first. So it's a very different design direction from usually what I see in let's say like D&D, which is, hey, this is a flat mechanical bonus. So I was doing a lot of interesting tweaky things like, if you activate this sword with this particular action, you get a bonus to another kind of related action, which makes it a bit video gamey. But I'm just very happy they gave me the chance to turn this into a video game kind of design. And I made some spells for them then, and some items which were fun to play with, cantrips and things. And people seem to, on the forum, seem to be very up in arms about it. Some people say that the spells are good, some say the spells are bad, which I think is a good place to be in. If people are arguing about it, that means that probably it's not too OP, it's probably balanced out. Yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's my Pathfinder stuff.
actually, when designing, it's good to have some that are not exactly optimal, but are very flavorful also. If you
Yeah,
if you're able to strike that balance, and I think it did a good job. I actually
yeah,
I
like
haven't looked at this book yet, um, but I am familiar with it. So check it out. Check out Shao's work. I also believe that Shao has contributed to Pathfinder Bestiary 3, right?
yeah. Like I that was the
The
first
one
gig
one
that I
of
got
first,
in which I
yeah.
wrote. Yeah, there was an open call on Twitter from, and then I was like, "Excuse me, senpai, could I work for you?" And then
May
they're
I
like,
do the thing?
"May I do the thing?" Then they're like, "Yes, you may, child." Yeah.
Do the
Then I was like,
thing.
"All right, yay!" They gave me armadillo to play with. Then I'm like, "I have made you an armadillo." I made you a pangolin. Yeah.
So there.
So
Check out Shao's work, and I think this is also a good time to conclude this session.
yeah, thank you
I
very
really
much.
enjoyed tonight's late nights, BJ, and I know that everyone's thirsty. So if you forgot to get your drink, make sure that you take a drink because BJs are always thirsty. Work. Yes, Shao has his buko juice. I do not. I should drink water before I go to bed. Um,
Yeah,
there you
thank you very
go.
much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have fun with the rest of your night or morning if or afternoon if you're on the East Coast. And see you next time. When will I be back? I will be back on Saturday evening to continue our vampire game, which is in Tagalog. So if you're interested in that, check us out. I think we're just they've just met the new Prince of Manila. Look forward to catching
All
VODs.
right.
Yes, you can catch the VODs on YouTube, even if you're watching on Twitch, because I'm mirroring everything on YouTube. I think just look for Buka Juice Games. Doesn't remember my own URL because I don't have one yet. But anyway, thank you again and goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest, and yeah, good night, everyone.